What up, y'all? Appreciate you showing up, hanging out, listening to my demands. Like and subscribe. So, first, apologies for the last video. I don't know what happened. It cut off at the end. I'll be more resilient. I'll be more observant. No, I'll pay more attention to that type of stuff. Sorry about that. Anyway, I don't know what happened. Anyway, so this is a quick little video, mainly about something we keep talking about. We keep reiterating is that PlayStation's number of shipped consoles is irrelevant because it has come out that Final Fantasy 16, I believe, only sold 3.5 million. Now, let's put that into not context, but a little bit more facts here. So, I guess the opening week or month, I think it was the month, it sold like 3 million or something like the beginning of its life cycle, it sold 3 million, right? And then it's been out for what, 3 years now? And from that point, from that initial sell to like 2+ years later, it only sold an additional 500,000. That is with the PC version coming out. So I'm like, how can you sustain a business? How can you be like, we're the market leader when you're not selling games? Because here's the thing about the console war. Console war existed before fanboys were touting console sale numbers. That's a more recent thing. Back in the day, it was about the games. Who has the better games, or who has the better version of games, right? So, for instance, Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat came out for the Genesis, and then it came out for the Super Nintendo. Many people said that the Genesis version was better because it had red blood. The Super Nintendo version had spit, white blood. I don't know what that, bile? I don't know what it is. It wasn't red. It wasn't blood. It was something else because, Nintendo was Nintendo, and they still are. And so the Genesis version was better, which made Genesis better than Nintendo in that instance, you see? And so if you look at things, different versions of the same game on different platforms back in the day, that's what made the console better. Also, the amount of games that were sold. Nintendo won, the NES console generation won because they had all the games, and that is also because, I've said this many times before, they had a very slimy business practice, Nintendo did, where if you put a game on the NES, you can't put it anywhere else. That's what they did, and that's what Sony's trying to emulate, but not really, but yeah. So, you see, they won just mere default because of the volume. Sega Master System, they had very minimal third party. It was all first party, and they still had bangers. But, they had more colors than the NES. Sound-wise, I think the NES had better sound. But a lot of the Sega Master System stuff was pretty good for the time, and their 3D was the best. But then the Genesis comes out. Genesis blows the Super Nintendo out the water. The only good thing that the Super Nintendo had was Mode 7, right? And I was like, that's cool. I like super scaling. That was me. But other than that, like, the sound was way better than the Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo used some sample, like really low bit sampling and stuff. And while it was good in some instances, a lot of the time it's muddy and it's not clear. Sega Genesis used the actual CPU from the Sega Master System as its bespoke sound module. So boom, the synths in it were great. They're still to this day, if you go and you listen to it, they still sound good. And their stereo panning is really good. It's really good. Anyway, the 3.5 million sold of Final Fantasy 16, I believe, is an indication of a failing system. And the fact that Sony is only giving you shipped numbers is an indication that they're not selling consoles the way that you think they are. The numbers are higher. They're giving you the highest number without defrauding themselves, without saying, telling lies, so they can say, oh yeah, we shipped this to the shareholders, without actually being disingenuous. Meanwhile, they're being disingenuous because, well, not really. It's just the fanboys, the donkey unicorns and their ponies, are so dumb that they use that as the number when they know. Well, I mean, obviously they don't know that that number holds no water. It holds no relevance because, like I said, and like everyone else is saying, your game sales are what matter. Period. And at the end of the day, when you say, okay, who won this generation? Everybody's going to say PlayStation because of that whole metric that they're holding on to. Meanwhile, who made the most money? That's going to be, I think Microsoft is going to surpass them, leapfrog them, if you will. And that's what Sony said. That's Sony's words. Whoever wrote that internal document, that's what's up. And so it's happening right now in front of our face. I mean, Microsoft is like, here's Sony, and Microsoft is like, woo, they just started jumping. And so they're going to jump over PlayStation as far as profits, if they haven't already, and revenue, if they haven't. Well, I don't think they have yet, but they will, because nobody's buying the PlayStation, the Pixeltech 5 Potato. And the funny thing about that is also, if the Pixeltech 5 Potato was so good and it was selling so well, one, Sony would be bragging about the numbers. They're not, so it's not selling well. Two, there would not be a peep. No one would be talking about PlayStation 6. And that happened real quick. Hasn't even been a year that thing has been out? No. And they started talking about PlayStation 6. I'm like, wait, why are y'all talking about PlayStation 6 already? And then when people said that the Pixeltech 5 Potato was a beta test for Pixeltech, it is, but at the same time, Pixeltech is a failure. Let's just be real. And this whole notion that, Sony is working with AMD to make FSR 4 for the Pixeltech Potato is also not true, because the Pixeltech 5 Potato cannot do FSR 4 in its true form. You could call it whatever you want. It could be improved from Pixeltech, because anything is better than Pixeltech. Anything is better than Pixeltech, so much so that devs are taking Pixeltech out so that their games can run correctly. Better. So it's like, yeah, you knock down the expectations to below zero, and then you give us something that's supposed to be what it's supposed to be, and then everybody's like, oh, look how much better it is. They're like, y'all are so brainwashed. That's what's going on. And this is going to continue, right? You're going to see that games on PlayStation, except for Xbox games, don't sell. And Xbox is giving them years old games, and it's destroying the charts. It's the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all over the world. And I'm like, this is unprecedented, right? So, and then the only defense that Donkey Unicorns and Ponies can say is that, Microsoft gave up, its capitulation and all this stuff. That's what Gaz says. But he's a pony bot. I don't know what's going on with all these. Yeah, is there a game going on or something? No, it's too early. I think it's church or something. Anyway, so it's like, it's a different strategy that people aren't used to. And especially like you would expect me, a gray beard, right? A silver beard, if you will, to be like, oh man, I hate this. I wish this PlayStation, Xbox would be, exclusive games and all that stuff and blah, 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 right? You would think that I would be that way. But my brain, I guess, is more evolved than some of these lizard brains, where they think tribalism and all these exclusivity is the right way, when in fact it is not, because once again, the health of the industry is more important than some tribal win, if you will. And once again, if Microsoft makes the best hardware, gonna buy it. I'm not gonna buy this Asus half-baked Xbox branded thing. Because one, it's going to be expensive, and two, it's not quite there. I want to play my Xbox library native, all the games, right? So I have to wait. I got to wait for Xbox to do their own Thug Thistle, and that's what I'm waiting for, and that's what I'm going to get. A lot of people are going to get it because they want to get everything, and that's fine. They want to try it out and stuff, and I'm like, that's cool, but, you know, I'll look from the sidelines. I'm like, I got patience. I got my X. I'm good. You know, and I could wait because I have all these games that are coming out to play, so it's not like I got nothing to do. Unlike PlayStation, you know, unlike the ponies and the Donkey Unicorn, they got nothing to do. They got to play Xbox games. And they're going to brag. This is so ridiculous that I was watching, I was looking on Twitter today, and I forgot who it was. Was it Nib? I don't know, somebody. And they were saying, oh man, 30% of people don't realize 30% of the Xbox game purchased on PlayStation goes to help benefits Sony and PlayStation. I'm like, yeah, that's true. 30%, sure. But the other 70 is, where does that go? And so the thing is like, it's that's a fanboy biased type of argument, because if you have a product, right, and there's a giant fan base, right, and you're like, oh, we can put our stuff over there and get a bunch of more sales, a bunch of more money. Say we sell $1 billion worth of game product on the PlayStation. Well, that's $700 million for us. That's $700 million that we didn't have previously. And that's $300 million for PlayStation. So that's what, one game they can make? One game they can make, and then, you know, then Xbox is like, yeah, let's throw that in Game Pass. Let's get some stuff. That's almost the budget of what they spend for Game Pass annually, as far as acquiring licenses and games and stuff. I think they spend $1 billion a year. And so you have to look at it that way. Like, when they sell games on PlayStation, yes, it benefits Sony. It keeps the lights on over at PlayStation, but it helps the little guys. It helps all the studios on the Xbox side. Like, say Forza Horizon 5 sells a whole bunch of more money, and, you know, they're making all this money. Like, we could imagine that maybe it's set up on Xbox side where they say, okay, if your game makes such money on both, then you get right? Because it's all game sales, and that's all tied into kind of contractual benefits and bonuses and stuff, right, for the game. So I would imagine, like, because every game has that, like, oh, if you sell this amount, you get an extra bonus, blah, blah, blah. It's like incentives for the devs and incentives to, you know, for selling well. And so putting their games, the studios games, their first party studios games on PlayStation benefits the studios. That's what Phil Spencer said too. It benefits them because they get more money. And you're saying, well, no, Microsoft gets all the money. But like I said, in the contracts, it could be bonuses tied to these things, and plus they could approve higher budgets for games if it's needed. It's a whole bunch of different things that can happen depending on the contracts. And so, you know, the console war aspect of this is skewing the reality of the finances. And while the 30% going to PlayStation is helpful for PlayStation, yes, ultimately it is undermining PlayStation, because those however million consoles that they sold, if their games aren't selling and they're spending more money to make their games, then the math ain't mathing. The math is not right. And the money they make from Xbox games is kind of counteracting their failures on their financial side. Like, whether it's investing in studios that do nothing and they close it down, whether it's canceling 10 games, all these things, you know? And so all the financial mishaps that PlayStation is doing this generation, Microsoft is helping them by putting games on PlayStation. They're helping them survive. And that's one thing I'll say about Phil. As much as he has Matt Booty in his side and he's like, yo, let them drown, son. Matt's like, yo, let them drown. We're going to spend them out. We're going to spend it. We got money, Philip. We have money. Let's spend them out. And then Phil's like, listen, Matthew, stop. Heal. Listen. I know how it looks. I know how the fanboys are going to react. Okay, but this is what we're going to do. Kumbaya, we're gonna make the money. Kumbaya, and they do it. And then Matt's like, he's like, I want to bite their face off. Phil's like, listen, you want a bacon bits later? You better chill. But cooler heads prevail. And so when Phil is kumbaya, Square Enix says, oh, maybe we should put our stuff on Xbox. You know what I'm saying? It's the long play. It's always been the long play with Xbox, right? And so if Phil was the other way, if Phil and Matt were on the same page, they were like, screw PlayStation, screw Sony, screw everybody, anybody who's down with Sony and not with us, then they would have burned a bunch of bridges. They would have burnt the Square Enix bridge. They would have burnt whatever other bridges. You know, Moon Studios, if you will. All these bridges. Now, Moon Studios is different because they wanted to be independent. They were with Xbox. They were like, you know, then they went with, was it Take-Two? It was, I forgot what the whatchamacallit was called, but they closed it down, so now they're independent. And that's what they always wanted. And now the dude, this I guess the CEO at Moon is like, yo, I want to really make a Ori 3 would be nice, right? It was like, well, I mean, Microsoft owns the IP, so I'm sure they could make a deal. That's not a problem, I don't think, because, you know, Microsoft knows they're a good studio, and, you know, I mean, I'm sure there might be a little bit of a difference as far as the contracts and stuff go, because Moon is independent, but they wouldn't be independent in that respect because they would just be work for hire at that point, even though they made the original games. Microsoft owns the IP, so they're just hiring them to make another game that they initially made. But they could have burnt that bridge as well. They could have said, nah, screw you, Moon, you want to leave? Bye, Felicia, and then not have nothing to do with them, right? Same way with Platinum and I forget the dude's name who originally did Scalebound, but now he's coming back around saying, yo, I want to make Scalebound, let's go, Microsoft. And Microsoft, they didn't burn that bridge. Basically, they was just like, you know, we canceled it, blah, 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 right? And then later, the creator came out and said, yeah, we messed up, we didn't know what we were doing, we didn't know how to do the online stuff, and that's why it failed, it's our fault, it's our bad, right? They took the blame. I was like, all right, cool, too late, but they took the blame. And so, in that respect, once again, they didn't burn bridges. They didn't throw them under the bus. They just, we're not gonna say nothing. You know, we're too big to be acting like that, yo. Because you know, the way, if you do it that way, then, you know, you leave the door open for opportunities down the road when a CEO changes or this and that and the third. So, so it's all good, you know. So they can do business, and they can kind of have all these different opportunities to still exist because they didn't act a certain way. And that's where I don't get, like, all these people who are like, oh, kumbaya, blah, blah, blah. And it's not about that. It's about business. And they don't realize that all these devs and all these companies, they are intertwined and they work together. And devs go from this company to that company, to that company, to this company. It's a giant community of devs and game developers. Just because a company owns this part and a company owns that part and a company owns this part, that doesn't mean anything. It only means something to the console warriors, you know. But you know, I think Microsoft is doing some very smart moves. And, you know, I was looking at Tim Dogs. He's still posting stuff. What did he say? He's still down on it. He's like, oh, he's still crying about the whole not being, saying, oh, Mike, this is a bad look for Microsoft. It's just not gonna, it's gonna harm the brand and blah blah blah. And I'm like, you guys are speaking from the role and the opinion of hardcore console warriors. The industry, the video game industry, does not exist or thrive on that, on us, on hardcore console warriors. It does not. If it did, there wouldn't be no industry. It's all about the casuals, and it's all about the young Gen Alpha and future looking. That's what it's about. And they don't buy consoles because A, they're too young. Well, some of them are. And B, they're on their phones, they're on tablets and handhelds. Why do you think the Switch sold so many? Because it's the closest thing to a tablet, except it's a video game. That's why Microsoft is doing this. Because they're like, yo, if we make one and it's kind of semi-affordable, but it's Xbox instead of Nintendo. Plus, with all the games they're getting, come on, son. I mean, even a Silverbeard, wants to buy one, right? But, you know, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But anyway, appreciate your hand showing my like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about once again, the lack of sales on a PlayStation for PlayStation exclusives and the plethora of sales for Xbox used to be exclusive IP on PlayStation. You know, it's pretty right? It's head scratching, ain't it? But hey, as long as Xbox is making games, I don't care where they show up. As long as I get to play it where I want to play it. I mean, that's kind of the thing, you know. And that is the best, because everybody has a different preference, and it just makes sense. It's like, yo, how do you watch Netflix? Not everybody's gonna be like, I watch it on my LG C29 52-inch, 63.5-inch. No, I watch it on my phone. I watch it on my tablet. I watch it on my iPad. I watch it on my laptop. I watch it on my 92-inch screen. I watch it on my projector. I watch it on my car, my radio on my car. I watch it on my microwave. I watch it on my refrigerator. Many different ways to watch Netflix. So, also, Concord is the biggest failure. We all know that. Anyway, I talk to you on the next one too. Wait.